So now, karibu to Albo wa Cinema. Now, today I wanted to do a reaction. This reaction is by one of the YouTube creators, Critical Drinker, who, in my opinion, I think is the best movie review guy, period. He always has very good takes, in my opinion, and there's something, a video he released about the superhero, the death of the superhero, so to speak, in the movies, or the superhero genre for that matter. As you can see today, we are adorning the great Arsenal's gear. Yes, we are. I'm paying homage for that drubbing of Manchester the other day. But this is it. So I'm going to watch this. We're going to watch this together, and then I'll just give some commentary. Often he's really good at just making you understand what he's talking about. So tuangalie hiyo maneno. Then then we can see really if his claim is legitimate.
On September 3rd, 2023, Blue Beetle finally managed to drag itself past 100 million at the global box office.
Okay, first of all, Blue Beetle is the latest superhero movie from Hollywood. It is part of that, I think it's MCU or something. And, well, it's being called the first Latino or Mexico superhero. They like to put in all those identitarian things, but yeah, I'm just trying to explain to you what he's talking about.
And it really got me thinking, what's the most efficient way to dispose of a dead body these days? Wait, what? It really got me thinking that there's no more appropriate metaphor for the sad state of the superhero genre than this movie. A bland, generic, and creatively inert project sharted out by a studio that's out of ideas and energy, doing nothing that hasn't been done a million times before, and roundly ignored by completely apathetic audiences.
Okay, that is a fact, alright? If you watch a lot of the superhero films, especially after the Avengers, the entire scope of that, the other movies are just so generic. Like if you watch one, you've watched all of them. It's the same thing. The stories are weak. The characters have not been built properly. So whatever they're pushing is usually just, he's Latino, he's this, he's a black or brown man, or whatever it is. But yeah, that is generally what he's speaking about.
And what's funny is that it's the kind of film that would have comfortably raked in $500 million if it had come out 5 years ago, when people still actually cared about stuff like this. That time, however, has long since passed, and I think in retrospect, people are going to look back on 2023 as the year the superhero genre officially died.
That's a big claim. My take on this is that the superhero genre has not died, and I don't think it will, because just by the nature of what they do is what we dream about. If I could fly, if I could do this, if I could do that, just the nature of that genre. What people are tired of is the weak stories and the politics and all that identity politics of the West and all that, or progressivism or LGBTQ or feminism. That's what people are tired of. Not the stories are written so badly that that's the only thing you pick out of, and it's done in such a preachy way, as I always say, that they're not good stories, period. So it's not superhero per se, they're just not well written stories, or told stories for that matter. Tuendelee.
I mean, let's be real here, it's been struggling for a long time now, and people like me have been warning that it was headed towards irrelevancy, but this is the first year when there's really no way of hiding it anymore. Don't believe me? Let's look at the numbers, shall we? Back in 2019, there were 8 cinematic superhero releases, making a grand total of $6.92 billion worth
But there, guys,
worldwide.
Think about that for a second. Like, these guys had so many movies that were past $1 billion, just superhero, and it's like 2019. It's not really. It's what, 3-4 years since. So what happened? What happened?
By 2022, we had 7 major theatrical releases, only this time they only managed to bring in 4 billion at the box office. That's a drop of more than 40% in just 3 years.
You know that the thing is, it only said they bring only this number of billions or whatnot. The reason why this is saying only is because of the ridiculous budgets that these companies are basically, the amount of money they're using to make these films is actually ridiculous. 300 million, 350 million, 200 million dollars. So, and then they have the promotion, which is usually about double the amount they've used or close to that. And then, of course, they split the ticket. If they're doing theater, they split the ticket sometimes 50-50 or 60-40, depending on where they are. So you have to make, so if you spend $300 million, you have to make double that, all right? Because also the studio won't get all the ticket money. They're getting about half of it. If it's away from the US, they make less, 40-30%. So you have to make incrementally a lot more money to be able to stay competitive. It's the budgets. I have a thing about those budgets, so I'll do a video about that, but that's what I'm thinking at the moment.
And 2023 is shaping up to be by far the worst year yet. DC have already released 3 movies this year, all of which have flopped disastrously. In fact, none of them have even managed to break 300 million. When you add Black Adam into the mix, that makes 4 flops in a row for DC. And somehow, I don't think Aquaman 2 is going to turn things around for them.
Now, see, the Aquaman 2 thing is Amber Heard, of course. Yeah, the degenerate lying scumbag of a woman, and also so arrogant, feminism, nini, but then a lying scumbag who's just an average actress. So
neither is James Gunn, the latest entry in a revolving door of producers tasked with salvaging whatever's left of their destroyed brand. Not only does he seem to be burning through fan goodwill with a series of unpopular creative decisions and embarrassing revelations, but he's been put in charge of a studio that might actually run out of money before he can even do anything. Things aren't looking much better for Marvel either. Ant-Man 3 brought in less than 500 million worldwide, nowhere near enough to cover its massive production budget, never mind turn a profit.
This is the one movie I really didn't understand. That and Flash. It's just such a... How do I describe this? Such a weird movie where you can tell, like, from the movie itself, because there are a lot of reshoots and redos, whatnot. The movie is so disjointed. The way they try to include it in the law and all this, multiverse, whatever, it's just, it doesn't come off. It just comes off as just something. They're using a lot of the After Effects and animation and whatnot. Those are the people who are really keeping this movie up, because, storyline, nah.
Secret Invasion, starring Samuel L. Jackson, should have been a big hitter on Disney Plus, but instead turned out to be the lowest rated Marvel show ever made. I mean, at least Guardians 3 turned a profit with 845 million at the global box office, but...
Now imagine you need 800 million plus to make some profit. Like, what business is this they're doing? There's a scam here. There's a scam.
I don't imagine that the Marvel execs were breaking out the champagne on this one. Not only did it make less than Guardians 2, even without adjusting for inflation or the massive hike in ticket prices, but it also represents a creative dead end for the studio that they can't exploit any further. In fact, the only unqualified success story has been Across the Spider-Verse, which brought in almost 700 million on a budget of just 100 million. That's great and all, but one successful movie isn't going to change the overall picture.
Think about that. The Spider-Verse movie, 100 million. I still think it's too high, but they made 700 million. So even if they spend 200 million on the 100 million on the marketing and whatnot, it's still making money because Spider-Man has been very popular. I think all their movies have made a lot of money. Yeah, $1 billion franchise. Yes.
And believe me, that picture's a depressing one. So far, superhero movies this year have earned $2.51 billion, a drop of 38% from the previous year and 65% from 2019. And out
Think
of the
about
6
that.
major movies released so far, only 2 of them have actually turned a profit. But drinker, you ingenious imbiber of intellectual elucidation, I hear you say, surely it's unfair to pass judgment on 2023 when there's still a couple of big releases to come. Well, convenient setup for a perfectly timed piece of mockery. Not when those releases are Aquaman 2 and The Marvels.
Okay, I went to laugh because the Marvels, the first one, which was during the Endgame saga, made money. I think it made over $1 billion. But because it was required viewing for you to finish that entire sequence of movies. So it was slotted in between Endgame, I think, somewhere there, so that you had to watch that because there are things happening there that you had to see there that was going to, be more important in the story. So it made that money because it was required watching. Now they're doing the second one, but they've even removed Amber Heard or whatever as the main character, the character of Amber Heard as the main person. So they've added other 2-3 women, I think, because they know she's really ruined her marketability,
One is the final pointless movie in a dead cinematic universe, starring what may be the most unpopular actress in Hollywood, for now at least, and the other is so hotly unanticipated.
He showed the
Unpopular actress in Hollywood, for now.
This weird. This actress. I don't know why Hollywood actors are so arrogant these days. It's so off-putting. My God.
Now at least. And the other is so hotly unanticipated that it's now been delayed and reworked 5 different times by Marvel. Even
They've
the
been doing
director
that
seems to
with a lot of
recognise
these
that the
movies.
writing's on the wall when she made this amazingly frank admission to Total Film. I'll pitch Kevin's 17 versions of what can happen with all these women, and why, and how, and this and that, and he's like, okay girl, and sometimes I think I've really got a movie going after this, and then other times I'm like, oh, they have this whole other plan that I'm not a part of. In terms of women-led films and women as superheroes in particular, and excitement around that, I think it's really just about whether or not the movie's good. Especially now we have more and more films that are female-led, that are action-based or superhero-based.
This is the thing. That's a bullshit claim. We've had superheroes, women superheroes, for as long as I remember watching TV or movies. So this new narrative that Hollywood makes, we need more women. There have always been women and a lot of women. But now it's because they are this girl boss persona. Everyone is claiming, no, I'm the first one. Oh, I'm the first one on this. Oh, I'm the first on this. So it's a bullshit claim when you're talking about, now we have more films that are female. We've always had those. But you see, these guys always have to force things that are not working. You understand? So when they do this, a lot of the times if you do this and you write a good story and you do a good story, people won't care so much. But then you write a shit story on top of that. And then the acting is just basic. So, well...
Jesus, calm down, Wordsworth. You're really dazzling us with your articulation here. This right here is what happens when reality comes at you so hard and fast that there's just no way to spin it into anything else. She knows that this movie's gonna be a fucking stinker that'll bomb harder than the Manhattan Project and is preemptively trying to manage expectations and deflect blame. She knows that this film can't just slide its way into a freshly lubed up marketplace like its predecessor did, where anything with the Marvel logo slapped on it was basically a giant money printing machine. The fact is, superhero movies are having to fight harder and harder to garner the kind of attention that would have been guaranteed a few years ago.
It's because they changed everything. They decided that good storytelling is not important anymore. Identity politics. We have to have women, we have to have gays, we have to have what in every story. And then them being women and being gay and whatnot is more important than the quality of your story. You understand? So they didn't have to do this. It was like one of the weirdest self-sabotage I've ever seen of any company. Like you just Fans tell you, no, 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 we don't want this. Oh, misogyny. Then this is what you get. Because when fans tell you what they want or what they don't want, and you persist, they'll teach you at the box office. They will not show up, and your movie will fail, basically.
There's an almost tangible feeling of weariness and resignation when a new movie gets announced now, like an aging man trying to rouse himself for another long shift at the same tedious job he's been working for decades. What used to be an exciting event to be savoured has become a kind of dull chore, something to be gotten through out of obligation rather than genuine desire or interest. And it's funny because everyone seems to have their own pet theory for why this happens. Depending on who you talk to, the problem lies in the oversaturation of the market with far too many projects, or the declining creative quality of the movies and TV shows being put out, or
It's not, there's no influx. Like every day, if you come to YouTube, for example, some creators do 3, 4, 5, 6 videos a day. And people are still going and they're getting more subscribers and watching because it's interesting and they love it. So these days, oversaturation? Absolutely not. I can't buy it because these days, with the amount of platforms there, you need more content everywhere. And there's so many people who have access to platforms now that can watch. So you need that. You need more. But you need more quality. Not just throwing it out there because... And they've gotten so many people who are not actually good artists to do these movies. And then they're just being given them because they're either a woman or they're woke or they're black or they're gay. Those are the reasons people are getting movies to make. Not because they're good at it, you know?
the increasing focus on identity politics and activism at the expense of good storytelling, or the arrogance and hostility of the movie studios as things start to go wrong, or the bland and formulaic nature of the films themselves, or even the dreaded superhero fatigue. For me though, I think the truth is a complex combination of all these different factors. I mean, let's start with the last one first, superhero fatigue. Or, more generally, genre fatigue. As far as I'm concerned, it's very much a real thing, and in the words of King Willie from Predator 2,
"There's no stopping what can't be stopped."
just like every other fad and fashion that's come and gone over the years, movie genres eventually become stale and played out as times change and people move on to new things.
He makes a good point. I agree, but I don't think there's fatigue in as far as those are the most of the movies you're getting. So there's no diverse genres. Like if you have your action, you have your rom-coms, you have your comedies, this entire scope is ignored for just one genre of superhero because they are making so much money. I think that can cause fatigue because those are the majority of movies and TV shows you're putting out. So he has a point there.
It happened to the adventure epics of the 1950s, the gritty crime dramas of the 70s, the gung-ho action movies of the 80s, and the comedies of the 90s. Why would you assume it wouldn't happen to the superhero movies that have been with us ever since the 2000s? Shit man, in genre terms they've had a pretty fucking good run. And in reality, it probably would have lasted a few more years if it hadn't been for the over-reliance on tired formulas and exhausting CGI spectacle.
That's the thing. Like Hollywood, when they do their movies, it's so formulaic. You almost know what's going to come next. When the words they use, the actions. Like for example, when you see those movies where a plane is falling so fast it goes down, then the silence, then like the main guy was trying to start it, and then you see it's disappeared. You think it's going to crash, then you see it again, come up. Those tropes. Or there's a war going on and then the main guy and his chick are there, or the main girl and the guy. Then they have a moment. There's everything is going on here. Mass extinction events are going on behind here, but they have a moment to share a kiss. And, I've always found that weird for a long time, but that's the kind of the formulaic nature of their films that that people are not down with.
The oversaturation of the market with endless movies, TV shows, spin-offs and sequels that became almost impossible to keep up with. The hiring of untalented or underqualified writers and directors.
I'm telling you, watch this She-Hulk thing. It's one of the worst, most cringe things I've ever watched. Anyways.
who are more concerned with pushing their own political worldviews than making good movies, and the increasingly aggressive attempts to attack and gaslight fans who dared to criticise their products and point out their mistakes. The truth is, they got too big, too lazy, too arrogant, too complacent, and it all contributed to an atmosphere of antagonism, frustration, and in the end, apathy.
That is that's what I'm telling you, this guy is very smooth with his own. The way he speaks about these things, it's so perfect. That combination of that, and you see, for me, what gets me the most, because I'm a fan first, is the arrogance of the studios, the directors, writers, actors. Like when they do something that is not good, they turn on the fans now. Oh, you're bigoted, that's why you don't like this movie. Oh, you're this because that's why you don't like this movie. The same tired narratives. Not, oh man, that story was a bit weak. Oh man, those effects were not that good. Oh no, it's fans. And that's why I keep on telling Kenyan filmmakers, stop attacking your fans. Stop it completely. You don't even have the market equity to do those kind of things. You're just borrowing from these foreigners. And you think attacking your fans will make them come. Kichwa yako haifanyi kazi kwa if you're one of those. I've seen some of the bigger filmmakers locally do a film, people don't show up because they didn't market it well. It's a movie. And then they go online, no, Kenyans don't support their own, and they make noise and they cry about it. And that's the one thing that will put off fans more than anything else. That patriotism is not given. It has to be earned, my friend. They just won't watch your things because you're a Kenyan. Okay?
Audiences just don't care for superhero movies anymore. They don't care for the bland and boring characters and storylines being trotted out. They don't care for the tired formulas and played out spectacle, and they especially don't care for the studios making them. I mean, I don't imagine they'll ever vanish altogether. We'll still get the occasional Batman, Superman, or Spider-Man movie because those characters are so timeless and popular that they'll always find an audience of some sort.
And that's the thing. The way they talk about these stories that were made back, that they're eating off right now. It's like, oh, it's so old. Oh, it's so backward. They're doing this while cannibalizing the same IP. Taking, and they're not even good at writing as these guys from before. So that's what actually gets people really mad. You take established IP that already has fans, multi-generational fans, then you inject your nonsense in there, you write a weak script, then you become preachy, and then you become annoying, and then,
But the time of the superhero movie as the dominant box office genre is over, and to be honest, I'm fine with that. It's about time Hollywood got shaken out of its money-soaked complacency and forced to come up with new creative ideas.
I always wondered how much money they had to throw at this, because they seem to double down every time with the wokeism, which people don't like, which they write really bad stories. I wonder how much money they are going to have, but I know they're not going to keep it up for.
It's about time we had more to look forward to in our summer movie seasons than an endless parade of capes and spandex and ironic self-aware jokes. It's about time we demanded something better in our entertainment. Now, just before I piss off, I wanted to bring one little thing to your attention. Many of you who tune into my open bar streams will be aware of the Critical Doggo, my somewhat faithful companion in the world of media criticism. Well, actually there's two of them, but legend has it they've never been seen at the same time and place. Anyway, whatever. The point is that the doggos are retired racing greyhounds that I adopted from a rehoming centre not too far from where I live, and I have to admit, they made for excellent pets. The problem is, these places often operate on razor...
All right. That now he's talking about his dog. Lovely. I think whatever commentary I've offered should give you at least a good idea of why some of these things are happening. And it is usually for me a wake-up call for those upcoming. People want to do similar stories or just other stories, whatever the case may be. There's a lot going on in the creative space right now. But the thing that's least helpful for anyone is being an arrogant creator. All right? If you're an arrogant creator, you will lose fans. Because guess what? You're not the only one. In fact, right now there's a multitude of people all over the world trying to create. The advantages these big studios had is that they can throw money at anything and try and make it successful. But even that can't overcome bad storytelling. All right? Because personally, I would rather have like a gangster movie here, have a hero movie here, have an action flick here, have a comedy here. But because these people think they can just control what you watch and what you must want, the arrogance and having too many resources and too much reach and you own everything, then you think, these people must follow it this way. Personally, I'm a big fan of superhero movies. I've always been. From the days I watched He-Man, She-Ra back in the day, like I don't know, it was early 90s or late 80s. I can't really remember, but that, Saber Rider, those are like comic, anime type and whatnot, but they became cartoons. And all those things were so wonderful, and I've enjoyed them through the decades because I didn't feel there was an agenda. It's just good old, watch Rambo, Commando, Robocop, all those. You enjoy them thoroughly. Locally, watch Nairobi Half-Life. Deep story, but there's also action and whatnot. If you look like, say, a more soapy movie like Supermodo of children, deep, with a bigger meaning, and it's done. Such movies is what people will watch consistently for decades. All right? So the reason I'm doing this reaction is because of that. Because as far as I'm concerned right now, we don't have an industry. But we do have pockets where people every now and then come up with a movie. But what I've seen, there is a level of unseriousness. There is a level of, you feel like Kenyans must just come out and watch your movie because you're Kenyan. The movie is weak. You haven't shot it well. You haven't edited it well. The color is bold. Like all these things. And you're competing with people from India, China, America, UK, wherever, all these people. You're not competing locally only. Most of the movies in our cinema halls, the 30 plus of them, are foreign movies. Mostly from India and Hollywood. So how are you going to compete here with people who have resources when you cannot basically close down your market by producing great movies? All the time. Producing just great movies. People just love watching your movies. There's big ways, but the major way and the only way is first to write a good one. Write a good story. People will forgive you for many things except bad storytelling. All right? That's my reaction to the Critical Drinker. Big up yourself. Subscribe, share, like, comment. Peace.